You can help. Donate today at together.ca. That's together.ca, the humanitarian coalition. Together, saving more lives.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Welcome to Her Story, the journey to winning a seat at the table. I'm your host, Mary J. Murray. And this program is a series of conversations with inspirational women with amazing stories to share. And stories are a tapestry of lifelong experiences and events. Let's explore the journey. My guest today is Cathy Lee, and she grew up locally here in the former Kepple Townships. That mouthful. And in her 32 career in education, she spent it in Nunavut, Baffin Island, and where she, where she lived and worked in the Inuit community. And as a teacher, a youth support teacher, a co-principal, and then to a principal. Now, in her journey in Baffin Island, she supported the Inuit language, culture, and youth identity. Now, in her second retirement, she has taken on a new adventure as she started to paint and use her creative energies. And through this work, now taking on a new adventure and capturing her photography of the northern landscapes, along with her painting in watercolor and acrylics. She has taken on a new initiative, and it's called Wearable Art. And she has partnered with Le Galeriste out of Montreal for a company called Wearable Art. So welcome, Cathy, and thank you for taking the time to join us today. We often see very accomplished women doing really amazing and interesting things, and that spark can emerge at any stage and at any age, and this is Cathy's journey. Hello, Cathy.
Hello, and thank you so much, Mary Jane, for this opportunity. I'm grateful to be here and to meet you and to share story and hope that it will resonate with and inspire others.
Well, I'm sure that it will, because actually your journey has been in stages. And overcoming some challenges as well. But let's reflect back on your early years here locally in the former Kepple Township.
Right. I always like to start by situating myself, and that's something I've learned as working in Indigenous communities, in Inuit community in particular. So I'm Cathy Lee. I married into the Kunilusi family of Kikatadjua, kept my maiden name and my good Irish and Scottish Irish ancestry, I guess, of keeping one's maiden name. So have continued to be known by Lee. And I've been gifted the name Makolia Minili Kuluk, which means the dear mother of the twins, which is a word in Inuktitut. And it was gifted to me by the mother, an Inuit elder, who is the mom of a dear friend and my colleague and mentor, Lena Mituk of Pengnerton, Nunavut, her mom, Siloa. So I share that because it identifies me, it situates me, it shows my relationship to Inuit community, and uh, yes. So my beginnings were at Balmy Beach. Actually, my grandparents had a cottage there, and my parents, when they married, moved into. So spent my early years throwing stones into the bay and swimming in the bay and exploring around. Took a drive with my twin daughters are 24 now, and we took a drive along there, and very different from when I was growing up. Later, I guess I think I was around 9 or 10. Then we moved to what was my great grandparents, James and Etta Pearl Lee, their farm in Kepple Township called the Glen. And we grew up with horses and all kinds of critters, raising horses. So early years were really about community, about family. I was blessed to grow up with grandparents farming people. The Lees had an apple orchard, and they raised sheep and cattle. My mom's side of the family, the Thompsons, are among some of the earliest settlers to Purple Valley and Hope Bay area, farming people as well. And my grandmother, Mary Thompson, who is still living and is on the family farm at 103 years of age. So I think strong, resilient women and men run in the family, and they are very definitely was really raised by a community and by my grandparents, as my parents were quite entrepreneurial people, working, money jobs, having businesses. So I spent a lot of time with grandparents. So music was plentiful. Both sides of the family played. My grandfather, my grandpa Lee, played in the Owen Sound Pipe Band. He played fiddle. My grandpa Thompson played fiddle. My grandmother, Margaret Lee, played piano. So my dad played. He had different musical businesses over the years, played in bands. So lots of musical influence, and the creativity, the arts, I guess, also were part of that time.
Well, I can see how that would influence your interest in painting and art. And was that a journey throughout your life that you were, or just after your retirement, getting into painting?
I think I always enjoyed the arts, like music in particular, and took art in school, but didn't really. I guess it was more when after the first retirement from education in Nunavut, then I settled back in the area and thought, you know what, I need something to do to keep active, and decided that I wanted to repurpose sweaters. So I bought up a bunch of sweaters, and people would donate, and I created clothing. So one of the items is called a hip hug skirt, just started with doing that, and from that moved into the painting, and that story is a bit later. Then after I decided to become a teacher, I was going to be an interpreter translator. Went to Laurentian University, and the first in our family to go to university. So that was a significant, in my immediate family, pivotal moment as well. And I went to Laurentian University in Sudbury, smaller, was going to be an interpreter translator, and decided partway through that I wanted to work with children and youth and wanted to be an educator. So finished that degree, went to University of Toronto and did the teaching degree. And after a couple of years in the then North York, headed north. Had always had an interest in north, and I think that came from my grandparents. My grandma and grandpa Lee had friends in Moose Factory in Moosonee, and my father worked building the Trans-Canada through Northern Ontario. So I would often hear story and see images of Northern Ontario. So saw an advertisement in the Globe and Mail that said, "Come teach in the Baffin, come make a difference." That was in 1989, and had the interview and went north to the community of Wiarton Island, it was then called, and began my career there as a teacher, and married into Inuit family, into the Kunilusi family, was welcomed into community in both Kikatejua and in Panuktuk. We say in Inuktitut, Pangerton. They are about midway up the east coast of Baffin Island. And my in-laws are originally from the land outside of Pangerton. They lived in nomadic camps, and then were forced off the land and moved into communities around the Pangerton area, and then moved to Kikatejua, Wiarton Island.
Well, that was one of my curiosities, was how did you knit into the community?
Right.
Because you come from a very different background, and coming and parachuting into a community that is very remote and also culturally very different. And so what were some of those initial inroads into that community, and how did you navigate that before you were married?
Right. I certainly there was a couple there, Ellie and Jim Hubner, and Ellie is a dear friend who just lives at Burford Lake, just around not too far from me, and we've continued and have a very close friendship. And she has adopted 3 Inuit children, and one of them is my nephew and my niece. So distantly through marriage. So they were very instrumental in welcoming me to community and helping me learn to become part of community. And then, of course, when I married my husband Luti, and married into the Kunilusi family, my in-laws are my late in-laws, Paulusi and Kilabuk Kunilusi. Learned a lot from them about being an Inuit community, about walking together with Inuit community members, and stumbled, made lots of faux pas, mistakes, but learned. And with the guidance of elders, with the students that I taught, just have very fortunate to have had a rich life and experience, and they have taught me. People have often said to me, "Cathy, you're like a bridge between cultures," and as an educational leader, that really helped me, because often we would be supporting, or I'd be called upon to support new teachers, new educators, new nurses, folks new to the North, and would be called upon to help support them and also help them better understand becoming part of and being part of Inuit community, and navigating some of those nuances of living, working, being in Indigenous community.
Well, I think when you're going into a very different culture, language, perhaps even religion and traditions, what I'm hearing from you is that you are very open-minded and welcoming the new information, as opposed to feeling that I am going in and you're going to learn from me. I got the impression from you and how you spoke, I am coming into the community and I'm going to learn about you, and you're going to teach me your language, your culture, and I want to be part of that. Is that a correct understanding?
Yes, it certainly evolved. I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't say that I certainly went in thinking, oh, I'm going to change, or I'm going to, I'm going to help with it. It certainly wasn't like a martyr mentality, but certainly um, a mentality of I have a university degree. I'm going to use this to help make change. And I quickly learned that my degree is just a piece of paper, really, and it's my experiences and being open and being guided by Inuit and centered on relationships and it was a paradigm shift. And I often share this with staff members and folks new to the North, that paradigm shift from a place of I have all the answers, or I'm coming in with a degree, with my knowledge, to a place of as you pointed out, being open, and that paradigm shift to learning from Inuit, from community, and walking with. I like to use that term because I think in these days of reconciliation, and our understanding of our history as Canadians, with Indigenous peoples, we need to make that paradigm shift to a place of listening to, being with, and walking with. Yeah.
I think one of my personal regrets is that decades ago, our leaders were not listening to our Indigenous communities, because we could have learned so much from them, and that we could actually be a better country if we had done so. And you mentioned truth and reconciliation has not gone quite far enough yet in order to embrace the cultures, traditions, and the language that were here originally. But anyway, circling back to your life, and you mentioned that that you were helping people who were coming parachuting into that community and helping them to navigate in. And did you feel that your voice was being listened to, that you had a knowledge background, or a sense that your experience was being valued?
I smile at that because it is complex. Yes, there were. I feel fortunate that over the years, I with others, I guess, became a leader in the system, in education, and an educational leader, and my input was sought out, in along with many others, in establishing the new education system for Nunavut, because we are Canada's newest territory. The division in the late 90s, the creation of the Nunavut territory in 1999. So we are really, to my knowledge, the only education system in the world that is actually still being created. Like I consider it like we're living within the system as we're building the walls and putting the trusses around us. So I was part of, and feel very fortunate to have been part of committees in setting direction for education in Nunavut, and based on elders and community wishes and desires for what they want for the education of their children. So from that perspective, yes, I was very fortunate to be called on by different leaders over the years to provide input. Yes, there were, and on the opposite end of that, there were times with new educators who found it really hard to make that paradigm shift, and even with our mentoring and support, and I guess I found my voice in terms of, I used to be incredibly patient with people, and then I realized our kids don't have the benefit of, they've got this year to be in this particular classroom, and they don't have the benefit of waiting for someone to catch up. And so I became very direct, and sometimes that would be off-putting for some new staff members, when I would say, we need to make that paradigm shift. We need to be looking at ourselves and what we are doing, as opposed to blaming the kids for, what. So yes, there were there were times when there were folks that did listen to the voice, and there were times when folks felt challenged by the voice, because I was asking them to step outside maybe their comfort zone, to hold a mirror and on self, and look at their behaviors that might be contributing to the issues they might be having with their students. And that's a hard one, to hold a mirror up in front of self and look at one's own behaviors. It's easier to look at others and say, what you're doing is the issue, not me. So, yeah.
Well, I just want to chime in here and say that I appreciate your voice, and that your consideration for the community, as we belong in the community, and we need to embrace the community as the community and see it from a different lens. And I think that's really important when we're working outside of our traditional culture. And the fact that we as a larger community need to be open to other paradigm shifts, and to how other people see us, and how we can relate and interact. So I'm quite curious about the second retirement. What was the first retirement?
So that was 4 years ago, and I hadn't planned on retiring, but another major influence in my life is my mom. Had a very close relationship with both parents. Dad died early of a heart attack, early, like before, in his 59th year, and we were fortunate to have mom until she was 76. But she had, very resilient woman as well. And I think a good friend often says, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, Cathy, in terms of your resiliency, and I think in grandparents. But so mom was diagnosed with breast cancer 14 years ago, and she decided that she was going to make it like a personal goal to battle that, and to win. And she did. She was 10 years cancer free, and then she was determined she was going to come north with a dear friend and visit me in Pangerton 5 years ago. Yes, 5 years ago. And it was then that she told me she had just gone in for tests, and because she hadn't been feeling well, and discovered that she had stage 4 lung cancer, and it metastasized to the brain stem. So I was blessed that the government of Nunavut allowed me to take leave to be with mom through the 5 months of her cancer journey, and she died in early November. We found out she found out in February of that year, and so I had not. I could plan to continue teaching, but I felt I needed to step away that I wasn't ready. I didn't feel that I could give what was needed. So I made the choice to retire at that point and resettled here in, I have a cottage here at Mallory Beach, just north of Wiarton. And so I joined the Wiarton, the McLaren pipes and drums, because I'd always wanted to learn the pipes, as my grandfather Frank had played, and just became really involved in community with the pipe band. And I joined the Burford Street Artisans Market with I started off upcycling glassware into garden art, and then I decided I'd try recycling or doing upcycling with the sweaters, and making these hip hop skirts and going to craft shows. And so that was the first retirement.
And we are quickly running out of time. We probably have about 3 minutes left. So
oh my God.
I know it goes so quickly. So in a very short synopsis, tell us about the La Galeriste.
Sure. So my mom was the inspiration for the company that I created. I called it Gratitude Glassworks and Wear, and I've now changed it to Gratitude Wear. So the images you see behind me and the kimono I'm wearing is one of the images from, I had an accident in the north, and I broke my arm. My shed collapsed on top of me in a Pangerton windstorm. I had to have surgery, was medevac to Ottawa, was there for 5 months, had major surgery, and the painting became part of my healing process. And I also developed a chronic pain condition called CRPS, complex regional pain, which is a lifelong pain condition. So the art is my way of managing and keeping resilient amongst that.
Well, this has been quite a journey, and somehow I think the journey is not over, but the conversation is coming to the end. And I would love to be able to spend more time with you, Cathy. This has been absolutely delightful. But there is a couple of things. I just, at the very end, I said if we had time, I just wanted to ask you, because you're going through this challenge and this, do you have a saying? Oh, actually, I have a quote here from you, and that is, "It is better to light a candle than to stand and curse in the dark." And that was by James Keelahan, who is one of our local artists as well. But do you have a little saying that keeps you going through the day when you're going through difficult times? Very short.
Be grateful. Practice gratitude.
Okay, and what brings you joy?
Life. Just my grandpa Lee used to say, if I can wake up in the morning, Cathy, and look down and see my feet, it's going to be a good day. And I remember that daily.
Oh, thank you so much, Cathy. This has been so delightful, and I'm really interested in learning more about you. However, please join us next time on Her Story for another amazing journey.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.